What if the way you were raised is exactly what you need to break so your children can finally feel free? I want to start with something very honest today. Something that took me years to understand and even more years to live. This episode is not about perfect parenting. It's about breaking something inside of you so something new can grow in your children. My name is Esther. I'm your host, speaking to you from Switzerland. And today I want to take you into a personal part of my life. Because my two sons, they didn't just grow up, they raised me. They taught me something I was never taught, what it truly means to be humble. I grew up in a very authoritarian family. My father, he was the patriarch, strong, dominant, and very clear about his rules. And my mother, my brother, and I, we obeyed. And there were consequences: anger, tension, fear. And without realizing it, this became my blueprint. Because as a child, you don't question your environment. You absorb it, you become it. So when my elder son entered puberty and he started to push boundaries, to question me, to stand up for himself, I reacted exactly like my father, with anger, with control, with intensity. And at the same time, I felt something else, something much deeper. I felt powerless, not just in that moment, but like a little girl again, standing in front of her father, feeling small, unseen, unworthy. And suddenly it was all mixed together. My son, my past, my pain. Everything collided. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have another model. And the worst part, at the same time, my father told me I was a failure. Can you imagine what that does to you? To be triggered by your child and judged by your parent at the same time? Maybe you know this feeling, being hit from two sides until you don't know who you are anymore. I felt like I was failing as a mother, failing as a person. And honestly, if I hadn't had someone in my life back then, a partner who reminded me that I was doing better than I thought, I don't know where I would be today. But I don't want to stay in that pain because something shifted. And that shift changed everything. It started when I began to work on myself, when I met mentors like Tony Robbins, and I started to understand something powerful, that my life is not controlled by what happens outside of me, but by what happens inside of me. That was the moment I stopped fighting the world and started taking responsibility for my state. Until then, I blamed everything: my father, my past, my circumstances, but I had never asked myself, what can I do with what I feel? So I started to learn something that was incredibly hard for me: not to react, but to pause, to go inward, to regulate my emotions, to choose my response. And let me tell you, this wasn't easy. It felt unnatural at first because reacting was my pattern. But slowly, step by step, something changed. I became softer, more aware, more present, and most importantly, more humble. Not weak, but open. And this changed everything in the relationship with my two sons. I stopped trying to dominate them and started to listen, really listen. I took them seriously, their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions. Something I had never experienced myself as a child, because I was often belittled, made small, not truly seen. So I made a decision. The cycle stops with me. And step by step, our relationship transformed. Today, my sons are 20 and 22. And something beautiful is happening. My elder son calls me, not because he has to, but because he wants to. He calls me to talk about his future, to reflect, to think out loud. And do you know what I tell him? Not what to do, but something much more important. I tell him, listen to yourself, listen to your heart, because if you ask 10 people, you will get 10 different answers. But only one voice truly matters, yours. And even if you make a wrong decision, there is always another path. There is no right way. There's only your way. And I want him to trust that, to trust himself. Recently, he started military service. And after just 3 days, he felt, this is not my world. And after 1 week, he left. And I was so proud of him because he didn't stay to please others. He didn't stay out of fear. He stood up for himself, for his values, for his truth. That moment meant more to me than any perfect decision he could have made. Because that's what life is about. Not getting it right, but being real. So today, if you are a parent, or even if you're not, I want to leave you with this. You don't serve others by controlling them. You serve them by empowering them. Let people think. Let people feel. Let people choose, and trust that they will find their way, even if it looks messy, even if it looks different than yours. Because real love doesn't hold tight, it gives space to grow. And if you recognize yourself in my story, if you feel triggered, overwhelmed, unsure, you don't have to do this alone. I offer free one-on-one coaching sessions, a safe space where you can look at what's really going on inside of you, without judgment, with honesty, with depth, and with heart. If you feel called, reach out to me. I would truly love to support you, because change doesn't start outside. It starts within you. And from there, everything else begins to shift. Be kind to yourself. Trust yourself. And I'll talk to you next week.